Okay, should be good to go.
Okay. So welcome to tonight's Neighborhood Plan Amendment Community Meeting. My name is Maureen Meredith. I work for the City of Austin Housing and Planning Department. The case tonight is NPA 2021-0026.01. If you haven't done so already, if you could sign in to the meeting with the chat box. If you're associated with an organization, if you could add that. The chat box should be either at the top of your screen or the bottom on a toolbar. If you could please mute your microphone if you're joining by phone. And if you could turn off your video if you're participating online to save the bandwidth, that would be very helpful. And also, this meeting is being recorded. The recorded meeting will be posted on the Speak Up Austin website, and we'll have the link later in the presentation. So how to participate today. The speech bubble in the menu bar at the bottom or the top of your screen will open the chat box where you can type in questions at any time. Please limit general comments until the end of the Q&A session. We ask people to do that so we can make sure we see the questions at the top as they come in, and we don't get the questions lost within general comments if we get a lot of comments coming in at one time. After the presentations, you can click on the raise hand icon to be called on to speak. If you're calling on the telephone, if you're participating on the telephone, you can just let us know at some point when you have questions and we can get you in the queue. So again, this application is in the North Lamar neighborhood planning area. I'll go ahead and introduce myself again, and then we'll introduce the other staff, the applicant's agents, and anybody else in the meeting who would like to introduce themselves. So again, my name is Maureen Meredith. I do all the plan amendment cases in the City of Austin. And next would be Jesse, who's also from staff helping us.
Hi, good evening, Jesse Gutierrez, Housing and Planning Department, City of Austin, and I'm just here to help Maureen out should there be a lot of questions towards the end.
This is Victoria Haase with Thrower Design. I am one of the agents for the subject tracts and am representing the property owners of the land.
Ron Thrower, Thrower Design, agent for the applicant as well. Thanks.
Hello. Anybody else like? Go ahead.
I'm Jade Lavera. I am a resident that lives near the property.
Okay. Okay. So we will go to the next slide. So here's my contact information. The zoning planner is Sherry Suedas. There's her contact information. And we can get back to this slide as well if people wanted to write that down. Also, if you live within 500 feet, you would have received the notice of filing for both the plan amendment and zoning case, and this contact information would have been on that notice. So the agenda tonight will go over the plan amendment and zoning case information in a little bit more detail, how to participate in the process, why is there a plan amendment application, what is a future land use map, and then the applicant will go into their presentation, and then we'll open the floor to the questions and answers. So again, this case is in the North Lamar neighborhood planning area. It is 7 lots. Some on Brownie, some on Middle Fiskville Road. It's about 1.79 acres. The case number is NPA 2021-0026.01. Project name is Grady and Brownie Mixed Use. The current future land use on the map, family and neighborhood commercial, and the proposed change is to mixed use. The associated zoning case number is C14 2021-0039. The existing zoning is single family residential, which is the SF3. NP is neighborhood commercial, and the proposed zoning is to MF4, that's moderate density multifamily, and CSMU, general commercial mixed use for a multifamily and residential and commercial development. So we have the property owners and the applicant, and then the agents as Thrower Design, Victoria Hasse and Ron Thrower, who introduced themselves a few minutes ago. So the guidelines for the group discussion tonight, please feel free to type your questions into the chat at any time during this meeting. Please postpone general during the Q&A session after staff and the applicant presentations. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand by clicking on the hand symbol on the menu bar. Telephone participants will be able to speak during the Q&A session of the meeting. Attendees will be muted upon arrival and through the staff and applicant presentations. Then staff will open the floor to answer questions in the chat or by attendees raising their hands to speak. Similar questions may be grouped and answered together. And we ask that you please mute your microphone if you're not speaking for the sake of the quality of the, and clarity of the conversation. If you're having connection issues, we ask if you could please turn off your video until called on to ask your question. So how to participate in this process. So obviously, if you have questions during this meeting, they will be answered. And if we are unable to answer your questions, we can have a response to you within 5 days. They will be posted to the Speak Up website there. That website is also on the community meeting notice you received in the mail. If you have questions after this meeting, you can call or email the case managers. Any written comments that you submit will be added to the staff case reports that go before Planning Commission and City Council. If you live within 500 feet, you will get the notice in the mail of the date and time of the Planning Commission and City Council hearings. And these notices will have instructions on how to participate in the hearings. The cases have not been scheduled for Planning Commission or City Council at this time, but when they are scheduled, you'll get that notice in the mail. So why is there a plan amendment application? Neighborhood plans are adopted by City Council as amendments to the Imagine Austin Comprehensive Plan. City Charter requires zoning changes to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Most neighborhood plan amendments are changes to the future land use map, and most plan amendment applications have an associated zoning application. So this map shows in blue the areas that have City Council approved neighborhood plans, most of which have a future land use map that looks like this. These colors represent broad land uses. For example, yellow represents single family. And with this application, some of the properties have the yellow single family land use. And the neighborhood commercial land use is the other existing land use on the property, and that is represented by red with white dots. The proposed land use is mixed use, and that is represented by the brown land use. So this is the change in the future land use map. So like I said, there's two applications. The plan amendment application is this application to change the land use on the future land use map. So this chart shows the typical zoning districts that you can find within these broad land uses. Like I said, the existing zoning is SF3 and LR neighborhood commercial. Proposed zoning is MF4 and commercial service mixed use. And those two zoning districts are compatible with the brown land use. So this is just an aerial photo that shows the properties. You can see East Grady Drive to the north, Middle Fiskville Road to the east, and then Brownie to the west. This is the Google map that just shows some of the surrounding uses to the property. I'll let you look at that for a few minutes. This is the future land use map. You can see the neighborhood commercial land use, which is that red with the white dots. That's on the eastern side of the property. On the west side is the yellow land use. That is the single family. This is the zoning map. You can see the property that has the single family land use has the existing zoning as SF3 and P. That's the single family residential. The part with the red is the neighborhood commercial zoning. So these are just some screenshots from Google Maps, and here's just a view of the property from Brownie. looking south on East Grady, looking west on Middle Fiskville Road. And then I just took some screenshots from the road, Brownie looking south, Grady looking east, Grady looking west, Middle Fiskville Road looking south, and looking north. So this map is from our Imagine Austin Growth Concept Map. It shows the property in relation to the comprehensive plan activity centers, and you can see the Lamar Runberg yellow activity center there to the left, and the activity corridors. So East Breaker Lane to the north is an activity corridor. You can see Lamar's activity corridor, and then the red and some of those other routes show Capital Metro bus stops and routes in relation to the property. So that ends my presentation. I will stop sharing my screen, and then Victoria can start her presentation.
Thank you, Maureen. Okay, so my name is Victoria Hasse with Thrower Design, and I don't have a very lengthy presentation to give, and a lot of it is a reiteration of what Maureen went over. This first map on the screen is the future land use map. We have the 7 tracks, 7 lots that are broken up into tracks 1 and tracks 2. As far as the future land use map goes, we are requesting a change from single family and neighborhood commercial to mixed use. So for the tracks highlighted here, with a successful future land use map amendment, these tracks would turn to the color brown, kind of like you see on the other side of I-35 to the east of that strip of red. So this map looks very similar. This is the correlating zoning map, and you can see the zoning districts labeled in black in each of those colored polygons. So the yellow is SF3 and the red is LR for these 3 tracks. The 3 tracks that are red, those are LR zoned currently. And we're asking to change the zoning so that the tract 1 area will, where our request is to change from single family 3 to MF4. And for the 3 tracks or the 3 land parcels labeled as tract 2, those will change. Our request is to change those from LR to CS, MU, and P. Both tracks with a successful rezoning and neighborhood plan amendment, both tracks will allow development of residential uses. But tract 2 will also allow a combination of residential and potentially commercial uses, which could include retail or office or those types of uses. So at this point in time, we've not gotten into site planning phase for this development. We're first just looking at the rezoning aspect. And once we get a little bit further down the path, we will start looking into what is actually achievable. But the desire is most significant for multifamily between these tracts of land, and possibly potentially adding some commercial space, but that's going to be much less of the project, if at all, for the desired project in the future. So I'm here to answer any questions and listen to any concerns that the neighborhood has. And if there's anything that we cannot address tonight, I will go back and get answers to those questions and then get back with the neighborhood. If we need to follow up with more meetings after tonight, that's also possible, and we can talk about that. So with that, I just want to turn it back over to Maureen and hear what the neighborhood has to say.
You can go ahead and leave your maps up in case it comes up during the discussion.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions? You either like to type in the chat or go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Hello. Hi, this is Jade. I live within 500 feet. I have been in this neighborhood my entire life, and I feel that this proposed zoning change and potential to have multifamily and or mixed use commercial there will significantly alter the neighborhood community that we currently have. It will increase security issues, foot traffic, as well as traffic in general. Has there been any consideration or interest in the effects that it will have on our neighborhood and our community?
Well, the way this property is situated, being on the edge along I-35, currently 3 of the tracks are already zoned for commercial use. It's just that these tracks have sat undeveloped forever. I don't think they've ever had development on them. And it's actually known that when this area was platted, when all of these lots were created and platted, this particular block, these tracks in this particular block were identified for commercial use in the future. But it's just that the tracks were never developed. And so now there is a desire to develop them. And I understand, a neighborhood, especially when you've lived there all your life and you've come to expect it to be a certain way and how it's always been, and you have concerns that some of those things may change as time goes on and as lots develop. And I would invite you to consider, I'm not sure why there is a concern that multifamily will increase like security issues. So I'd like to hear more about that, what your thoughts are on that. And obviously putting in more dwelling units does bring more foot traffic. It does bring more potential for more vehicular traffic, because it means more people are going to come live here where there currently aren't any people living. But this location is along a major highway, and it has good access to that major highway that would not go through the neighborhood. I think this would be a very different story if the development were on the other side. And maybe someone could argue that there would be a lot of increased vehicular traffic on maybe East Grady as people try to make their way towards I-35. But this development is actually on the perimeter of the neighborhood and along a commercial highway. So I mean, I do want to hear what you have to say about why you think it's going to cause more safety issues, and why foot traffic would be a bad thing. I do think the city of Austin and the comprehensive plan, they're wanting to move towards decreasing vehicular traffic, and part of that is bringing enough density into the core of the city to support more robust mass transit system. So that could be a better bus system. It could be a train in the future. I know we've had some bonds here lately for putting in some transportation improvements that will build a more robust system. So I know that's what the city would like, and our client is has a desire to put more houses here. We are in a housing crisis. We don't have enough homes for the people who live here and who are moving here. And so we need to build more homes, and some of those look like apartments. And not everyone wants to own a traditional single-family house. So this will give some of those opportunities for people who maybe can't afford a single-family house, but need a place to live. So with that, I'd love to hear more about what you have to say about the concerns for safety and any other concerns you have.
Yes, thank you for that, Victoria. So I actually have been in the multifamily property management business for almost 15 years now. And so I'm very familiar with the problems that do naturally occur with simply the first fact being more people, more problems in a sense. And to that regard as well, and I know that you mentioned that there's not any concrete, plans of what the apartments and or commercial possibly will look like, or what that property may even entail. But I can probably make a pretty accurate assumption that there will also be low-income family housing. Probably a percentage of that multifamily housing will, be allotted to that, which will also already bring a potentially different resident status here. As I mentioned, I have been in this neighborhood my entire life, and aside from the handful of houses that have recently sold and been renovated, everyone else is still the original families that have been here. And a lot of them are of minority, of a large majority is of Hispanic descent. And I feel that this situation is going to affect those that are not able to use their voices, which is why I made sure to show up today. I understand the Track 2 area is already zoned for residential, commercial type things. And, if commercial mixed use facilities are to be there or in any of the red areas that are current, I feel that those could potentially enhance the quality of life for the neighborhood. However, converting the Tract 1 into a multifamily potential is absolutely going to hinder the community that we currently have. To touch on the traffic situation, so we are actually not on 35. There is a very visible median, if you see that red kind of tail cutting through. However, because of our the proximity to 35, there is already traffic that uses this and down Brownie Drive or through Grady as a cut through, because if just anyone that has lived here long enough knows that that can be a shortcut or to bypass traffic and so forth. So there is already heavy traffic by car as well as foot traffic for the same reason. And I don't feel it does not enhance our status at all to encourage more of that and have the exposure to our neighborhood be even greater to outside people. Now, as far as safety goes, as I mentioned, I have been in the multifamily management industry for several years, and I have two specific concerns on that. One, as I mentioned, foot traffic is already very heavy, as well as automobile traffic is already very heavy through here because of the known path there. And given that there is already a heightened awareness for unknown people walking through, and that will only triple that concern. I am a single mother. I have 2 children here, and I don't think that it's fair for us to have to raise our alert on that because there is several more. There's opportunity for that much more access and awareness of bringing traffic into our neighborhood, into where our homes are, our houses are. It's now passing the 35 corridor access lane. And we're actually not in a housing crisis right now. What it is the prices are too high, and that's including 4 apartments. So it's an affordability issue. It's not necessarily a units to people. It's not a supply. It's a supply and demand situation where the prices are high because the demand is so high, and therefore we have a lot of homeless that are not able to afford anything, whether that be an apartment or not. And on that note, I feel that I can pretty accurately state that the rates on the apartments will probably be more than all of our mortgages in that apartment, just given the rent prices in Austin. So I don't necessarily agree or feel that is a legitimate argument for why that multifamily building should be there. I would also like to point out, just as far as our community structure and feel that we have here, we are in the process of right down the road, right down Brownie Drive on the other end, having the Brownie Neighborhood Park plan is actually underway to have that redone and attention and renovations done to that. And again, this will hinder the joy use of that once that is able to be complete. Victoria, can you tell me how many potentially what size unit multifamily unit may be able to be placed on that lot?
Well, it could be a combination of, of sizes. It likely will be, you can, there can be as small as efficiencies, or you can have 1 bedroom, you can have 2 bedrooms, and you can have, 3 bedrooms and up. Typically, I think it's most common to have a majority of the units be 1 and 2 bedrooms, with some larger units being 3 or 4 bedrooms. There's also a possibility, our client has not fully looked into this, but there's a possibility that these units could be ownership. They may not be rental. They could be units that are for sale. So that has not been figured out at this point just yet. So So that's, we don't know at this point what the unit mix will be, how many 1 bedrooms, how many 2 bedrooms. That's still up in the air, and that we'll be able to tell a little bit more about what that could be as we get closer to site planning for the project. But we're not there just yet. Right now, we're just asking for the ability to even consider that. So.
Okay, I understand. I think my question was, let's say it's all efficiencies or all 1 bedrooms, just to keep it simple. What is the max number of units that can be constructed on that multifamily, given the lot size and the other restrictions? So are we looking like, I know that it could potentially be anywhere from two and up, but what is that max potential look like? Is it 50, 100?
So I can give you a maximum, but understand that even the maximum number that I give you is not very likely, nearly 100% not likely to be achieved, because the maximum numbers that I'm going to give you are quoted strictly from the City of Austin Land Development Code and the zoning districts and what they allow as far as density goes. But they don't take into consideration that you have to take up some of your land area to address water quality, water detention. Some of the land area is going to be taken up by parking, by drive aisles, by open space, those kinds of things. So, let's just say on average, with the density allowed by CS and MF4, it's the same thing. On average, it allows up to 40 units per acre. So we have 1.79 acres. So then that would roughly give somewhere around 64 2-bedroom units. But again, it is very unlikely that we will be able to achieve the full 64 units, because by the time you put in all of those other requirements that the city has for developing something like this, you wouldn't be able to achieve that. The other thing to contemplate too is that, while, compatibility applies. So because these tracts are adjacent to single family 3 lots that are zoned and used for that purpose, the code requires that you have to step back by 25 feet and not have any development from a property that is a single family property. And then further, once you get beyond that 25 feet, then you can have, your building can only be 2 stories, which is the same as what everyone else is allowed in your neighborhood. All of y'all are allowed 2 stories. This development would be allowed 2 stories within that next 25 feet. But then after that 25 feet, then you can get an additional floor when you're 50 feet away from the single family property that could be yours or someone else's. So you can't, it's not like we would be able to come in and build a 4-story building right next to the single family homes. Like, the city requires that there's a step back in height so that you don't have that situation occurring. So once you consider all of those additional restrictions to development, that's why I say it's not likely that you're going to achieve the maximum density, because it doesn't take into consideration all those other things. So that's the best answer I can give you right now, is at max, on average for 2-bedroom units, you would be able to get about 64 units on this land, but know that it's not likely to be 64.
Thank you. Yes, I understand. Does the investor propose, do they currently own the land? Because there is a for sale sign that has been up. Or are they just looking to purchase the land, and before they purchase, they want to have this modified?
They do own the land currently, yes.
Okay. Can you tell me when they purchased the land?
Give me 1 second. They purchased it in 2016 and 2019. So there's 2 separate transactions.
Okay. And are they local? Are they an investment company? What other lands do they have? Like properties, construction things? Do you have any of that information?
They are local. They've been in the Austin area for 35 years. And as far as other projects, let me see.
While you're looking, Victoria, does maybe John or someone else have a quick question? We can get in the queue, or
There's also someone that called in, Maureen, with the
okay,
phone number 512653.
okay.
If they
So
have a
the
question.
caller, yes.
If it's okay, it might be better for me to get back to the neighborhood or get back to Jade separately on being able to answer the question of what other developments they have experience with in the city. I know they have some commercial developments that they've done in the past, but I need to seek more clarification on that. So Jade,
Sure.
I'm happy to follow up with you offline.
Sure. Yes, no problem. What is what's the investment company's name?
So this particular project is listed as Brown and Grady LLC, Brown and Grady Investments LLC.
Right, but what's the oversight company?
Hold on 1 second. Okay, there is no oversight company, is what I'm being told. They're just Brown and Grady Investments LLC.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions, whether you're on the phone or participating online? Go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
I have a question. I think this might be for you, Maureen. What do the next steps in this look like? And if it's something that you're going to get to at the end, we can definitely we can wait.
No. So yeah, the next steps would be I will schedule a meeting with the staff, and we will make a recommendation. I'll report back the concerns that we heard at the meeting tonight. We'll look at the North Lamar Neighborhood Plan, the City of Austin, Imagine Austin Comprehensive Plan, and we will make a recommendation on the change in the future land use map. Then the zoning planners, they will meet and they will review the zoning request, and they'll make a recommendation on the zoning request. Like I said earlier, we have not scheduled it for planning, the cases for planning commission or city council yet. So if you wanted to have any of your comments added to the staff case reports that will be submitted to planning commission and city council, you should probably do that sooner rather than later. So we can make sure those are included. But since you live within 500 feet, when the cases are scheduled, you'll get that notice in the mail. It'll have a comment form, and you can either send in that comment form and or email us at that time, and we can also get your comments in the case report. So that's the general next steps.
Okay, thank you. And when is that staff meeting planned? You said sooner rather than later. I just wanted to see if you had a.
Yeah, so I have our staff review of these cases is scheduled for tomorrow. I don't know when the zoning planners plan to meet to make their recommendation, but we will meet tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll leave the floor open for anybody else who wants to talk, or rather either make comments or ask questions. We'll just leave the floor open, and you'll have some silence, but feel free to unmute your mic if you want to speak.
I think if you're on the phone and you want to unmute yourself, you might need to press *6, and that should unmute you if whoever's on the phone wants to speak.
Hello, can you guys hear me? My name is Elias.
We can hear you.
Yes, we can hear.
Okay, I was speaking. I didn't know about the *6. My apologies. Yes, hi. My name is Elias. I'm within the 500 feet of this. I'm in a partnership with the land that's across the street from it at Grady's. And my question is, this is going to be strictly planning for multifamily. Is that correct? There's no retail outlets as far as gas stations and that's concerned?
It is mostly for multifamily and potentially 100% multifamily. But know that if there is a commercial component to it, there's no plan for a gas station or anything like that.
Oh, that's great. That's a music to my ears. All right, then I bless this project as soon as possible, please, because we can use some living spaces.
Yeah, I'm getting no gas stations, no adult-oriented businesses, no pawn shops, nothing like that. If there's any commercial that goes in here at all, it would be small, retail, maybe, sandwich shop or something like that, or it could be professional offices in the bottom floor of the building. But they're really focusing on bringing housing units here and less on any commercial plans. So.
Perfect. Well, I went all the way up to Leander. I couldn't find any place to live. I mean, these people have a 400 people waiting list just to get into the house these days.
Yeah, we are in a housing shortage, that's for sure. So,
Yep. Okay, yeah, then I have no objection at all. Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, so we'll wait a few more minutes. At some point, if there are no more questions or comments, we can go ahead and end the meeting early. So we'll wait a few more minutes.
I did have another question. Do the investors plan to sell after construction? And if so, how far after? What is their terms of loan situation look like as far as the restrictions on that? Are they obligated to keep the property for a certain amount of time, or can they sell it, and do they plan to?
Hold on one second. So at this time, like I said, I don't know. It's looking like it's probably going to be condominium type units for sale, is what I'm being told. And so with that being the case, it would be a situation where as people come in and purchase them, ownership will change for that particular unit. And with a condominium association, there is a legal document, the formation of a condominium association that will move forward to oversee the land, but each individual owner will own their own unit, and together they all own the land that the units sit on. So usually condominium associations, when they're formed, they have rules in them for, how the property is maintained and what you can and can't do as far as making changes. There's a lot of things that go into the formation documents that can help with the upkeep and maintenance of the property as it moves forward in the future. So I think maybe what you were referring to as far as like, are they required to hold on to the property? I'm wondering if maybe you're talking about sometimes when residential projects participate in tax credit funding, whether it's through the City of Austin or other funding outlets. Sometimes like through affordable housing type projects, there are requirements for how long, depending on if they're owned or if they're rented, there's requirements for how long those units have to remain affordable. But at this point in time, I don't believe we're looking at affordable housing for this particular site. It's not something that I've really talked about much with my client, but it's not really come up in our discussions. So I believe this is going to be a project that would not necessarily be looking to take advantage of those programs, tax credit programs.
Thank you. And if the plan was to make them condominiums that are for sale, what is the anticipated sale price range?
That I can't answer for you off the top of my head. That's outside of my scope of what I do. And a lot of that will depend on several factors, including, you know, how many units are proposed and other development factors that go into this to determine. I mean, in the end, it's, you know, you look at how much it costs you to do the development, and then of course, you know, people do this for a living, so they're looking to, you know, give themselves a paycheck. This is what they do. So in the end, a lot of it is dependent upon how much time it took the development to get on the ground, all the fees that went into it. The city has their fees for site planning. They have their fees for various elements of the site planning process, traffic mitigation, all kinds of things. So a lot of it will depend on the accumulation of all those fees and the cost of development, and then how many units they get to spread that cost across. So it's a hard question to answer at this point in time. It's an impossible question to answer at this point in time.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll wait a few more minutes for any last questions or comments. Okay, so it seems to me that that might be the last of the questions for tonight. If there are no objections, I will go ahead and end this meeting. For participants, if you do think of questions after we've ended this meeting, let me put my PowerPoint back up so you can see the staff contact information. So Tori, if you want to take yours down, yeah. So there, my phone and email, and then Sherry Serwatis's phone and email if participants want to jot that down. And if you have any questions that you think of after this meeting ends, don't hesitate to call or email us and we will get back to you. If it's for the applicant and their agent, we can certainly forward that to them and make sure you get the answer.
Yes, please do, Maureen. Jade, I don't know if you want to put your contact information in the chat, or if you just want to reach out to Maureen and she can send me your information so we can get in contact directly. Either way works for me.
Sure, I'll put it in the chat, no problem.
Okay, and I'll put mine in the chat as well.
Okay. So if there are no objections, I will go ahead and end this meeting. Like I said earlier, this meeting has been recorded and it will be posted on the speakupaustin.org/NPA website if you wanted to review it, or you have neighbors who couldn't attend the meeting tonight and wanted to watch it, they can watch it there. So I will go ahead and the meeting, and I hope everyone has a nice rest of the evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay, bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.